Now, an in-depth look at the news and information shaping our community. This is Moose Talks with your host, Doug Craig, on Moose FM.
Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the show. A little later on, we're going to be talking with Susan Adams, the Executive Director of the North Peace Community Foundation. Fort St. John City Council recently approved the transfer of grant and aid funding, duties to the foundation. That's going to happen later in the fall officially. So we're going to discuss what that means for you and groups in the community who are looking for funding going forward. But first, Overdose Awareness Day is August 31st, and Urban Matters is partnering with Fort St. John Community Action Team, to put on an event that day at Festival Plaza to spread awareness about the overdose crisis in Fort St. John. To talk about that, we're joined now by Julianne Kucheran from Urban Matters. Julianne, thank you so much for being here today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
I think it's Kucheran, actually, as I say. My
Close
apologies.
Close enough.
So, Julianne, why don't we start with the day itself and the importance of having a day to talk about and be aware of the overdose crisis here in BC and beyond, because, it is a crisis.
Yeah, most definitely. Thanks. So Overdose Awareness Day is actually an internationally recognized day. Mm-hmm. Countries all over the world celebrate or honor the day on August 31st. And I don't know how many years this is running, but here in Fort St. John, this is actually our 5th year running. So We've been doing it for the past 4 years in different capacities. But essentially, it is all about honoring those that we've lost to the overdose crisis, providing some education and awareness to the community about substance use and overdose. It's really an opportunity to reduce some stigma and to create some compassion in the community, and come together, honor our frontline service providers and families that are struggling with the loss of a loved one, and just really a day to learn and come together.
Yeah. This is, the stigma to me is so interesting, because it's still really something that I think a lot of people think happens to other people, right? It happens to, and it's not a nice term, but to junkies and people over there. It's not something that affects them until it does. Is talking about reducing the stigma, what do you think is the best way to do that? Is it just talking about it? Is it talking about it more? Is it me talking about it more in the media and just saying, this is happening in our community to our friends and neighbors? It isn't happening over there. It's happening here.
Yeah, when you look at the statistics, it is a lot of times, the highest rate of overdoses and overdose deaths still continues to be males in their 20s to 50s and 60s even. Like, we're seeing the rates high even in kind of the later stages of life, and this is due to a lot of different things. I think locally a lot of it is those in industry. So say someone goes into work in a camp or on a site and comes back and is using in their hotel room kind of recreationally, and then they're using alone, and that's often where we see the overdoses. But I know, like you say, it's not just people that are disconnected from society. It's often people's family members, so children and youth, so people's kids, people's coworkers, people's loved ones, and it's definitely often in residences. Like, I believe the stats show that in the Northern Health Authority, over 60%, so 62%, are in local residences, so people's homes and garages. And then 20% is in other residences, so like hotels, motels, and then 15% happens outside, so in vehicles, sidewalks, parking lots, things like that. But you can see that the majority is in people's private homes and often using alone, which is when you can't have someone come and revive the person that's suffering from an overdose.
That's sort of the scary part of this, is because, of course, and I think part of the day that we're going to talk about in a few minutes is there's sort of demonstrations on how to learn how to administer naloxone when you see an overdose occurring. But if you don't see that, if you're using alone, that's not an option available to you. So is there an element of this that even if maybe you're a user, that you want to learn something about, maybe if I have to use, I need to be doing it in a safer way, and that we have a kind of a role to play in making sure that both we don't want people using, but if they are, we want them to be safe in doing so?
Totally. And I think that's such a big part of the reducing the stigma
Yeah.
and having kind of more of a compassionate approach to it, is that whether people are using for whatever reason, based on, some people may have used opioids for like a back injury and then
Yeah.
got addicted to it and weren't able to come off it properly. So it's not always just, someone's fault, or people saying, oh, it was just
Sure.
someone who, has a bad background or whatever. It can be childhood trauma, all these things that lead people to use substances, usually to escape pain and trauma. And so I think with the compassion piece, I think really recognizing meeting people where they're at, and like you say, not necessarily having this idea that everyone just needs to not use substances and abstinence is the best course of action and we need to criminalize people who are using substances, but more of that compassionate approach, meeting people where they're at in their journey, and whether it's providing education and awareness about providing harm reduction, so providing safe and clean use kits, or kind of naloxone kits to people so that they can have them if they're using with friends, or are able to revive someone on the street and be able to know how to use that. And then, of course, it's a full spectrum. So maybe there's people who are ready to not use anymore. And so maybe having a referral to a detox center or a treatment center. And then I know OPSs have been a big thing around our community. And that's just one part of the spectrum, using substances safe in a building, right? And so I think it's all about those different pieces, about meeting people where they're at in their substance use journey.
All right. Well, let's talk about the day itself. From what I've seen, kind of a prospective agenda anyway, you've got kind of a full day of activities planned for the 31st in Festival Plaza. So why don't you take us through some of the things that if you stop by for a few minutes, or, the whole thing, if you want to, what you might see and do and see there.
Great. So as I mentioned in past years, I think the first year we started as an Overdose Awareness Week, so we had things every day, and then, of course, realized that was a lot of work for a whole week. And then during COVID, we actually had like a car parade, because obviously the distancing. So this year we're doing very similar to last year. I don't know if you were part of the day last year or reported on it, but it'll be at Festival Plaza from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. And so we're going to kind of have the Festival Plaza area open like, the farmer's market would be, with tables, and people can kind of come in. And at 10, we'll kind of have a formal opening. So, a bit of a few words and perhaps drumming. We're working on getting some elders from a local First Nation to start us off in a really good way. Hoping to have a couple of the local politicians to say a few words. And then kick off the day from 10:30 until 12 with just kind of an open house style activities. So you can go to different tables and booths of local service providers. We're going to have naloxone training by Northern Health and potentially First Nations Health Authority. Some of the peer groups and Mom Stop the Harm are going to have kind of different activities honoring those we've lost. So an art activity with crosses, and a mask activity about taking off the mask and stigma. And then from 12 until 1, we have the Salvation Army food truck providing a free lunch over the hour. And we'll have some music and some poetry reading as we're eating outside. Hopefully it's a nice day so we can kind of sit outside in that area and all eat together. And then 1 to 2 will be similar to the 10:30 till 12. So people that weren't able to make it in the morning can come by, check out the booths, learn how to give naloxone to save a life. And then the last hour from 2 to 3 will be kind of a closing vigil. We have candles that people can light in honor of a loved one that they've lost. We're going to have folks just provide space for folks who have lost a loved one to talk about their loved one and honor it, and just kind of really end in a good way, thinking about the people that we've lost in our community, and just, being there for each other in that last hour. So
I wonder if you can quickly speak, and I don't know if you can, but to naloxone, I mean, you can... It's easy to get. You can find it everywhere, and it's great to just quickly learn about it, because it's not... I know the first time I heard about it, it was, that's intimidating. Like, you need to give it to somebody who's having an overdose. How, I can't do that. I'm not medically trained. It's not that hard, and you can very easily help somebody through that situation by just learning how to use it and having one on hand, a kit on hand, right?
Definitely. I mean, the kits are pretty straightforward. They come with a syringe and pre-loaded kind of little packs that have the naloxone medicine that reverses an overdose.
Yeah.
And so generally when you get those, you can ask at the pharmacy for a little demo. I know Northern Health and First Nations Health Authority in the past, when they've done demos, they've used an orange to be like someone's muscle. I believe you put it into someone's shoulder or like a meaty part of their leg when they're suffering an overdose. And the little kit actually has instructions too. So say if you weren't able to get properly trained, there's a step-by-step kind of instruction booklet inside the kit. Another thing that's happening is more and more we're seeing the nasal naloxone, where you just have to insert it into someone's nose and kind of push that medicine into their nose. So
I see.
I think as time goes on, there'll also be more of the nasal naloxone available, which I think, like you say, people will feel a little bit more comfortable that they don't have to put a syringe in someone's arm or leg. But either way, they're both pretty straightforward.
I'd say, finding just a meaty muscle is much easier than, well, do I have to search for a vein like you're an ER nurse or something? Okay. All right. If people want more information about this and what's happening on the day, and if they want to help, if they want to spread the word, what's the best thing they can do, and where can they find that info?
Yeah. So I don't know if everyone can see this, but this poster, this way,
Yeah, there you go.
We're going to be posting this around the community. Posting in all the local coffee shops and kind of grocery stores. So that has the date, time, and list of activities. And we'll make sure that we kind of share it on different Facebook pages. We've got all of our community organizations. So this is put on by the Fort St. John Community Action Team, which is made up of different social agencies, health agencies, First Nations, communities, and organizations. And so it's really a collaborative effort. Like Urban Matters has just been hired as project manager to help with this, but really it's all these groups coming together to put this on. So everyone will be sharing it out. If you want to get involved, at the bottom of this poster, it does have Urban Matters phone number and an email address for my colleague Sarah, who's also supporting on the project management. So yeah, it's going to be a great day. Anyone and everyone is welcome to come. I think we have a goal of getting 50 people trained in naloxone over the day. We'll have one of those big kind of thermometers where we're hitting the different numbers. So please, come enjoy the day, learn something new, have a free lunch, and help to get us to that number that we want to get people trained up in the community so that we can save some lives.
All right. And again, that's August 31st, 10 till 3 at Festival Plaza right here in town, correct?
Yes. Awesome.
All right, Julianne, thank you very much for making some time to come by and talk to us about this very important initiative you guys are doing.
Thanks so much for having us.
You're very welcome. That's Julianne Kucheran with Urban Matters here on Moose Talks. Welcome back. I'm Dub Craig. Now we're going to talk a bit about the North Peace Community Foundation. We've been talking about this with the mayor of Fort St. John for some time now. And as it happens, recently, City Council passed a motion to establish a partnership which would essentially hand off grant and aid funding issuance, I guess you could say, to the Community Foundation, as I understand it. So to talk about this sort of final hurdle for the foundation to really kind of get started going and moving along, we're here to talk with the executive director of the foundation, Susan Adams. Susan, welcome to Moose Talks.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the welcome.
You're very welcome. So why don't you remind us, first of all, what the Community Foundation is and what its kind of goal is in the community?
Sure. That's a great question. Thank you. So a community foundation is really meant to match donors with the causes that matter most to them for the future of the community. So as opposed to some organizations that maybe are raising money for programs right here and now today, we focus on the long game and look at investing and endowing funds for the long term. Now, that's not to say that we also don't have short-term programs, and the city's grants and aids program is one of those types of examples.
I see. And this was something that I think even the mayor said, this takes it out of the hands of politicians and puts it into the hands of community, because this was something the city sort of used to do, and groups, nonprofits, whoever was looking for funding would have to ask the city and present to council and all this. That's not going to be the case anymore. They come directly to the foundation. Is that correct?
That's correct. So to step back to the mayor's comments a little bit, yes, the goal was to move the decision making out of the politicians' hands and from it being a political exercise to go into a community driven exercise where these are our community members that are supporting and working to help each other and develop these grant programs and assist with the nonprofit and charitable sector in the city of Fort St. John. So this year, it being a transition year, applicants would normally have applied in the spring to the city and would have their information. However, there's been a little bit of a transition, and I'm happy to say that we start our program applications from September 1 this year to October 31. So it gives organizations a little bit longer to put their applications together. But to be honest, none of the information that we'll be asking for is any different than what the city had been.
Okay.
We want to make sure that we manage that change really well for applicants and that there isn't any undue anxiety about the change. But the city has committed to keeping these organizations whole. So throughout this process and as we get to matching donors with this program, the city is committed to making that whole. That's a huge gift.
If you're someone who doesn't fully understand how this works, like me, can you sort of give an example of like what type of group, what type of organization would be asking, would be kind of applying for funding and how that works and how it kind of goes together to go from we need this funding, we'd like this funding to here it is, we can help you out.
That's great. I love that. Thank you for letting me walk your listeners through this. So an organization looks at their budget, determines what the revenue needs to be in order to deliver the programs and the services that they want to. These are nonprofit organizations, charitable organizations within Fort St. John. Some may own property, some may lease property, some may be co-sharing workspaces, but the ultimate for nonprofit organizations is how much revenue do we need to deliver our programs. So when they're looking at that, most nonprofits and charitable organizations look at what grants are available that help match the work that we're doing. And sometimes those grants can be really hard to find, and they're often different places of the country. For this program in particular, the Grants and Aid program, this is a local-based program. So this is for City of Fort St. John nonprofits and charities. They will apply through the foundation. We'll take a look at it. In most cases, as long as it doesn't exceed 20% of their annual revenue, they will get it. It is well recognized by the city and those that develop the foundation that the nonprofit organizations and charities in this group, in this city and the region, really help establish that social fabric in those places for people, whether it's families, folks that are needing it on the social end, or organizations that are just starting up. And I think we saw through COVID that our social connections are very, very important, and many of these groups establish and help maintain those organizations in the community.
I wanted to make sure to mention this because I know part of it and kind of doing some research for this, you've been writing stories for the last year about big donations that local companies and organizations have made to the community foundation as sort of part of this. So this seems to be a new facet to this, whereas before it was just what can the city give me? Now it's the city's providing some of the funding, but also there's these other organizations who are helping to establish the endowment so that it can sort of make its own revenue, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's one of the excellent mechanisms of community foundations, and part of the gift that they can give to the community is so we're matching donors, whether they're corporations that are looking through their own community investment strategy, and community foundations can be an important part of that, whether they're folks that are looking at their estate planning and how they can move money into the charitable realm to help ensure that they leave a legacy, to whether it's small companies just finding out how they can support maybe many of the nonprofits that they would like to do without having the people to do that. They can use the foundation for that. And then as we've started to help local government establish and maintain some of their programs. So it really is matching donors of all kinds with the causes that matter the most to them.
So essentially the company and also in this case the city, they give you the money, you and the board or what have you, and then allow you to administer it sort of as you see fit, and sort of trust you to do that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rather than them having to decide, as you say, do I want to give to this? It kind of goes to the community in a sense.
Goes to the community, and the needs will be determined on an annual basis with the community telling us, areas that need more support or need a bit more spotlight or need a little bit of a push to get started. So that will be done on an annual basis through the board of directors.
Now I know that in a little while, in a couple of years or whatever, this is going to end up saving the city some money once the endowment's sort of established. It won't be costing the city as much to do this as it was before when they were handling it. But what are the advantages for the groups specifically looking for funding from this? Is it that there's now more available because this could just essentially grow and grow?
That is absolutely the potential, and I think that we're seeing that really quickly, that the opportunity for that fund to grow quickly is there, and there will be more funds available to a broader diversity of groups. As you said, it also reduces the amount that the city has to invest, and it's not that the city will take in less money, but those are just other areas that they can apply that money to that helps the community. So this really does over time become a more organic program from a bottom up rather than that top down, highly administrative approach.
I see. Okay. Well, if you happen to be somebody from a local nonprofit who's maybe, okay, well, this is a lever I've never pulled before, or somebody who wasn't sure how the transition would go, as you said, not much has changed except, I guess, who they're asking. But how do people get involved, and maybe if they want to donate, they want to apply for funding, what's the best way they can do that?
So first I'll speak to the funders or to the applicants. So they will get an email from me today with the grant criteria, and the application period is September 1 to October 31. So that information they'll receive via email. It will also be available through our website and our social channels.
Yeah. And this is for next year, correct?
This is for funding for 2023
Gotcha,
through the
okay.
Grants and Aid program.
Yeah.
Yep, and they'll know by the middle of November whether they've received that or not.
Okay.
So there's that part of it. Donors can call me anytime. I'm available. They can reach me through info@northpeacecf.com, as well as any applicants that maybe hadn't applied, as you said, maybe haven't pulled that lever before because they didn't fit into a permissive tax grant stream. Now we want to look at the whole of the organization and how can we support them. So they're welcome to get in touch with me at info@northpeacecf.com.
All right. Well, Susan, it's very awesome that you took some time to chat with us today, and we appreciate it. And we'll have you back to talk about some of the programs you've funded and all that good stuff in the future.
I'd love to talk more about it. And just to give a little bit of a plug, we do have another program coming up that we're helping the city with called Neighborhood Small Grants. This is a very exciting program because they're micro grants in the community, up to $500 to help neighbors create and do something within their own neighborhood. So whether this is a skills share or a craft afternoon with the kids in the neighborhood, a movie night, it's anything that people can dream of that will help add value and to their experience in the community. So I encourage people to go to nsg@fortstjohn.ca to get more information. That's going to be a really fun one.
Excellent. Sounds like an excellent program. All right, Susan, thank you so much for being here again. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. That's Susan Adams, the Executive Director of the North Peace Community Foundation.